all caught fat ass dubs this weekend, and we love to see it. But before we get to that, we're going to start off with some Tigers, which unfortunately has not been so positive lately. Um, but with that being said, I will let James take over for our Tigers update.
Yeah, thanks, Chase. As of last week, I'm like, things are just looking good. It would take either one hell of a collapse by the Tigers or a absolutely borderline supernatural effort by the Guardians to anything to have them like switch places and reverse this. And well, at least in terms of the last week, it pretty much happened. So we are not in danger yet, but um, our lead has been cut in half in the last week. So we still have a 5.5 game lead, but this time, as we were sitting here last week, it was 10.5. And Cleveland took the heads up game against us last night in extras. We have two more in this series, so we're going to go again. First pitch is in about 35 minutes. And these games are literally double because that's the team chasing us. So we can essentially kind of just put ourselves back in the driver's seat, ignore the rest of the season if we can go on a 2 or 3 game win streak right here. There's only 11 games left in the entire season. By this time, when we do our podcast next week, um, there will be from either 5 or 6 left. We'll be right in the middle of that. But depending on what happens, because we do have an additional series against the Guardians, not too far out. Because like I said, we do only have. Let me find my tab here. Yeah, we have two more games against the Guardians. Then we have the Braves come to town for a 3 game set, and then we go to Cleveland for another 3 game set before ending the season in Boston. So 5 of our remaining 11 games, including the game tonight, are against the Guardians. So in theory, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, and we can what if any scenario in our heads. But in theory, if the Guardians take all 5 of those games against us, with the remaining 6 games, I know the orders varied, but the remaining 6 games would literally be a toss up for the division, and not only the division, but the first round bye at that point will come down to a half a game difference in those last 6 games, so to speak. So things could really get interesting here, or the Tigers can win these next 2 against Cleveland and kind of not mathematically, but for a large aspect of it, put this out of reach by tomorrow. If we can win tonight, and if we win, I think tomorrow's an after. Sorry, lost my page. Yeah, we play at 6:40 today. Yeah, and tomorrow's an afternoon game at 1:10. So within the next 48 hours, we could have a 7.5 game lead. One, two, three, four, five. With 7 games left, so we could pretty much lock it up completely if we just kind of correct the ship. So it's not worth panicking over yet, but it would have taken an astronomical amount of swing for this thing to shift, and unfortunately, it has. Just to get it back into the raw numbers, the Tigers over their last 10 are 4-6, not the best. While the Guardians are 9-1. So the Guardians have done that, um, almost like the Lions. I think it was 2 years ago when we won 8 straight, but we still just barely missed the playoffs. They're kind of on their run right now, so hopefully we can prevent them from doing that. And if not, there are still a couple outside of division games to be had, but I would prefer to control our own destiny, take care of things ourselves. With only 11 games to go, all in all, without the what if scenarios, we're still 5.5 games up, so we are still looking pretty good. According to Pro Baseball Reference, there is a 96% chance the Tigers hold on to win the division. So odds are still in our favor, but a good amount of that potential catch up has already happened. So hopefully that just stays as that. Um, but the next like I said, 48 hours. These next two games will actually 24 because by the time they play out one tomorrow, the next 24 hours will tell us
Oh, I think we lost you there for a second. Oh well. Shoot. Um,
big chunks because if we win both these games, it's. You
you're
got me?
back. I think you're back. Yep, you're good.
Oh, I didn't realize I was gone. What was the last thing you heard me say?
You said the Tigers. You were talking about
I
the
was on another.
Guardians and the Tigers towards
Yeah,
the end of it.
yeah. Just long story short, because I don't know when I cut out there. Sorry, guys. I had a different tab up, so I didn't realize I froze. We are 4-6 our last 10. They are 9-1 their last 10, so they are coming in hot. But with only 11 games to go, we are up 5.5 games, so it's still looking pretty good. Pro Baseball Reference. Oh, football's on the mind. Don't worry, we'll get there. Has us as a 96% chance to still win the division, and as long as we can keep looking how we've been looking, um, it's looking pretty good for the Tigers. If we can get another win or two above average, let's say we go 8-3 these last 11 games, we can even be looking at a first round bye in the playoffs. So the sky's not falling that they're catching us, but we do have to correct them. They can't go another 9-1 their next 10 games, or we will be having a much different conversation next week. But yeah, that's all I got on the Tigers.
All right, yeah, and that's, like you said last week, it's kind of funny that like you started it with it's kind of funny how we said a lot of bad shit would have to happen
Oh,
for us to be
yeah.
here, and we're
Yep.
here. So it's like
Yeah.
fingers
Ex-
crossed, man. Hopefully
Exactly. I'm like the Guardians are gonna have to do something amazing. Well, 9-1 over your last 10's pretty amazing. So
yep. They're doing it. Like, all
okay.
right. But with that being said, we will move on and we will go to Michigan football first this week simply because there's a lot more to say for the Lions. Basically, Michigan played Central Michigan. Not really too much else to say other than that. I will say that, it looked like they opened it up for Bryce. It seemed like they really kind of let him, spin it, which was really nice to see because against Oklahoma, it looked like we were afraid to throw the ball. Like it was literally bubble screens and running the ball, and that felt like about it. I know there was more than just that, obviously, but that felt like the game plan coming in was just don't push it downfield, which with a guy like Bryce Underwood, obviously you want to push it downfield. You want to be able to open that offense up and get it going. So hopefully we see more of that this weekend against Nebraska. And I think we're going to need it because Nebraska, man, they've got a high powered offense over there. Obviously they have, oh my gosh, how am I spacing on their quarterback's name?
Patrick Mahomes.
Pretty freaking much. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you might as well. Dylan Raiola. There we go.
I was gonna say Dominic Raiola. I'm like, nope, it's the Lion, former Lion.
But yeah, so Raiola, very good player. Oh my God, it kills me though with his freaking Mahomes stuff. He literally, it's not even that he wants to be Mahomes. It's that he is trying so freaking hard, man. Like, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this other than like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, honestly. And that's just because they both
Yeah.
play shooting guard. They're both bald and they both do the fadeaway, and they both got like the mentality thing. It's like, yeah, but Kobe was actually, I'm not going to say as good, but like
It's at
there
least
was,
conversation.
yeah, there's a conversation. It's like, bro, you're a fucking college football quarterback and you're cosplaying as Patrick
Yeah.
Mahomes every Saturday. It's like what is going on here? But with that being said, he's a talented kid though.
Yeah.
And I just wish he'd get away from all that shit because he can be talented on his own. You know what I mean? He doesn't need all of that
Absolutely.
to try to, be cool or whatever the case may be. I think he should just rely on being him and staying true to him. So, with that being said, I don't know who he's got around him, but somebody needs to tell him, like, hey, bro, if you want to be the number one pick, you ain't doing it by pretending to be Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Don't
Um,
pretend to be the number 10 pick.
right. be the number one pick. Like, come on.
Act more like Mitch Trubisky, and you'll be drafted higher. No? Okay.
Well, I mean, the Bears, number one. The Bears. All right.
I will never get over that.
When they haven't either, apparently, because which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah, good segue into. I know we're not there yet, but
No, but point being, they also have some pretty high-powered weapons over there in Nebraska as well. So I feel a little bit worried about our defensive backs this week. I'm hoping they can come in, top tier performance and shut them out. Obviously, that's what you hope every week as a defense. But realistically, this is probably going to be somewhat of a shootout. I would say unless, we get a couple turnovers, which is possible. It's possible. I just think Nebraska's offense is good enough to score on us. And that worries me because based on what we saw in our first actual test this year against Oklahoma, we didn't do that great as a team. I feel like, obviously, there were bright spots for both offense and defense, but the score is a little bit like it lied a little bit because it felt worse than that. And that's
I
pretty much all I got.
no, I agree. I'm just a little confused because I am trying to find uh the is Nebraska really not ranked?
No, they are not.
Oh, I thought they were. I'm like, am I looking at outdated? I'm like, they're 3-0. I thought they were at least, even if it was high 20s or I guess mid 20s technically. But I thought they were like 24th, 25th or something like that. But okay. Um, yeah, in I want to try to um I'll talk through my thought process here. Be as professional as I can, but I cannot get over, as we mentioned, the Mahomes cosplay. It's something that I've tried to avoid talking about because I really don't have anything nice to say about that. That's just a unique situation. I'll just say that. I've never seen someone style their hair, buy the same sunglasses for pregame walkouts, and do just basically mimic like it's almost like I've seen Elvis impersonators and Michael Jackson impersonators. I've never seen an athlete impersonated while they are playing that sport, and it's just
No, that's valid though, because that's exactly what it feels like. I feel like I'm looking at those fucking Michael Jackson impersonators while I'm looking at Raiola. I'm just like, why? What are you doing, bro?
and as you mentioned, he's a 5-star recruit. Like he's a very talented player. He doesn't
Hmm.
need a gimmick. It's not like he's a 2-star or a walk-on that's just trying to get his name out there. He can just play very well, and I wish I had it in front of me. I saw a side-by-side breakdown for stats compared to Underwood, and he's better at everything statistically than Underwood. Now, don't get me wrong, obviously it's been a very small sample size so far this year. Underwood's an 18-year-old, Raiola's had, obviously more games played, but, that part doesn't matter when it comes Saturday. It's just, that's all. Saturday itself is the only day that matters. It doesn't matter. Going forward, we're not talking like draft prospect wise or anything like that. So it is what it is right now. They do have the edge there, and I agree with you. I do have some concerns with our corners. The one thing I will say that could benefit us in one way that we can always mitigate our corners not being the greatest is by putting some more pressure on Raiola and not giving not having the corners required to cover them for 4 or 5, 6 seconds. If you can put pressure on the quarterback, make them have quick throws. Obviously it's a lot easier to cover a guy for only 2 or 3 seconds. So, and thankfully Michigan's had a pretty good pass rush this year. Um, so hopefully we can mitigate it with that at least. But it's an intriguing game. It's obviously not a Central Michigan again. Because as much
Yeah.
as I did enjoy that game, it was just Central Michigan. No offense to them.
Yeah, I mean, as fun as it was to see us put 63 on somebody, it's like, yeah, well, yeah, Central Michigan, it is what it is. Like, you're not, I mean, we literally go into that game just like, that's a win. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. I watched the game, but I didn't pay that much attention. Like I was doing work for, I was watching film or whatever the case may be, doing my call sheet for the week, and I'd just look up every so often and be like, "Oh, scored again, sweet,"
Yeah,
and just keep.
exactly.
It's like, "Oh, cool, they didn't score and we scored. All right, keep it up, boys."
Yeah,
um,
that was pretty much it. The
yeah,
the one big difference I will say, and I don't know if it is a coaching difference because Coach Moore was that was game one of the self suspension, and Coach Biff was taking over. I don't know if the play caller was different because I don't know if Moore calls the plays. I don't know. Obviously, the it was showing the OC, but his name is escaping me. But I almost wanted to text you because when it showed Michigan's OC for the game, he was in the booth with the headset and everything, and I'm just like, hmm. Anyway, week two for the
weird,
Lions, it looked pretty good in the booth too. So we're
weird.
just,
I'm
just,
still waiting for a response, by the way. Just saying.
but
Still haven't gotten a response on whether I'm going on the show or not. So just put that out there.
and then since we're on the, I'll just say the booth topic between Michigan and Detroit, we did put up over 100 points this weekend. So I don't think the booth offense is a talking point in terms of a negative. That was a pretty
No,
good
sir.
showcase for the pros. But going back and sticking with Michigan, yeah, like I said, it's gonna be a harder game this week. But um, I don't know. I feel like it's a 50-50 game.
Yeah, I'd agree there. I don't I feel pretty good about this game, but also I definitely feel like it can go either way. And obviously if we show up like we did against Oklahoma, it probably won't go our way. So we have two games so far that we look pretty good and one game that we don't. So small sample size, it's hard to really tell. We might go from it literally might be good, bad, good, bad. You don't know. So we'll see how it goes this weekend. But with that being said, it's time for Lions talk, baby. Um, obviously, as we just mentioned, the Lions scored a shit ton of points this weekend, 52 to be exact. Jared Goff led the frickin' way, boys. He had an elite showing, ended the game with 17 straight completions, which I know probably everybody remembers last year, Monday Night Football against Seattle. He went 18 for 18. Obviously, that's more talked about because he was the perfect game. I think this game was better from him. Call me crazy, but I was at that game Monday night, and while I was at the game, it you could feel it like, oh, we're just kind of managing this game. We're not really like, yeah, we had that 70-yard touchdown from JMO, right? But that was a freaking slant that he took to the house. So it's not necessarily like he was throwing it all over the yard. I went back and watched the film on that game and charted it. I mean, he only had like 3 or 4 legitimate dropbacks in that entire game against Seattle. With that being said, this game, he went 23 for 28, 334 yards, and 5 touchdowns. I think this game was better than the one he had last year against Seattle, even though that one gets talked about more because he was perfect. And then on top of it, like I said, 17 for 17 as well. So obviously the offense was on fire. Amon Ra, he had 9 for 115 and 3 touchdowns. JMO had 2 catches for 108 yards and a touchdown, which, again, this is another example of Jameson Williams catching a slant and almost taking that bitch to the house. I mean, he literally, it was a go ball he caught for the touchdown.
Yep.
And then he had that slant that was, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 yards, something along those lines. Because he didn't make it all the way, but he damn near did.
Yeah, I think it was a 45-yard
Okay.
play.
That feels about right. So, I mean, obviously, it has its similarities to last year's game against Seattle, honestly, in a lot of different ways. I just feel like our offense was just that much better. I mean, 177 total rush yards, 2 touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs had 12 for 94 and a touchdown, an average of 7.8 per carry. And then, Monty had over 50 yards as well. We broke the Lions record for yards per play, by the way, which is pretty fucking nuts based on what we did last year. I mean, I'm
Second
not
game.
saying right, and it was like it took us a while last year to kind of get our shit together offensively. And listen, man, I'm just gonna say it like this: it's the fucking Bears, bro. Like, as confident and as good at that I feel after that game, I have to remind myself, it's the fucking Bears. Okay? Like, and I'm not saying that because they suck. It's just their defense isn't really top tier, especially when they lost their best corner. I mean, it's like, as a Lions fan, I am fucking ecstatic after whooping their ass. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, I think we're kind of, you know how last week it was like, relax guys, the sky isn't falling, the season's not over. I feel like we've completely flipped that this week, man. It's like, guys, relax. We didn't just win the fucking Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, honestly, we're like, I work with a couple Bears fans, and like, I talk shit, but it's like, haha, because,
Yeah.
they talk shit first. Like, literally, when they hired Ben Johnson, they were all like, yeah, bro, we took your coach. We're about to whoop your ass next year. So, of course, the first thing I say on Monday is, I'm like, so what was that? That was a 50 burger on your fucking noggin, buddy. And it's just like,
Against
go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say that's a 50 burger against the guy who knew our offense better than anyone.
Exactly.
So they should have
Exactly.
known what was potentially about to happen. Obviously, they don't know the game plan,
Right.
but it's not like Ben Johnson's not familiar with each and every one of our weapons,
Yeah.
besides
And
Tesla.
exactly true. Very true. And point being is that, like, a lot of them over this last week have literally said to me, man, you Lions fans are acting like you won the Super Bowl. And like Monday, I was like, haha, good one, because I'm at work at fucking 7:30 in the morning. So I'm like, good joke. And then I go on Twitter as I'm at work every so often. I'm looking and I'm like, these motherfuckers are acting like we just won the Super Bowl. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, Lions fans, we talk about it all the time, but I don't know what it is with like Detroit sports, man. But we are so, like, for lack of a better term, wishy-washy. It's like,
Oh
when
yeah,
we're down, we are so fucking down, and it's the worst. This is why the Lions will never do anything good in the fucking Fords or the devil or whatever they say. And then when we're good, they're like, well, the Lions are the best team in NFL history, and the Fords are saints, and I almost just said Ben Johnson. Brad Holmes is a freaking goat. He's the greatest of all time. But then when we don't get a sack, they're like, Brad Holmes sucks because we didn't go
yep,
get another edge rusher. Which, look, I'm in the camp that we need another edge rusher, but I'm also not a fucking idiot, and I know Brad Holmes is good at his job. Okay, both things can be true. Like,
100%.
you know so point being, like, I feel like people just need to kind of relax, come down a little bit. Like, yeah, we just won 52 to what, 17 or whatever it was. It was a blowout, and it was a great game for us.
21, 52, 21.
Okay, 52-21. We're going into Baltimore on Monday Night Football, boys, so we got to strap the fuck in. All right, get ready, because shit ain't gonna be easy out there. But we'll talk about that in a second. But point being, our key, or my key, what is it? Keys to win the game, basically, for last week against the Bears was pressure. Caleb was number one, which we had 4 sacks, which is better than what we did last week, which was 0. Um, Hutch had a sack. Davenport had a sack. Muhammad had a sack, and Brian Branch had a sack. Speaking of Brian Branch, he's balling this year. Just saying. We'll get into that a little bit more later, but dude, he is on another level. But the D line was better overall. Run defense was pretty solid. Still, though, and call me crazy for this, I know we had 4 sacks, but contextually, when the sacks happened, I think we only had 2 in the first half. So by the time the other 2 sacks happened, the game was already pretty much out of reach for the Bears. So I would like to see more pressure and more sacks earlier in the game to kind of set the tone. You know what I mean? Because I feel like that would have really helped against Green Bay too. If we would have had a sack on a 3rd down and made them punt the ball, like, that's a game changer. But on the positive side, we had about 16 pressures against the Bears last week, and 8 of them came from Aiden Hutchinson and Muhammad. So that's pretty positive when it comes to Muhammad specifically, because we kind of already, I mean, we all watched the game. He was doing his thing. Obviously, he wasn't getting home as much as we'd like, but he was definitely making Caleb feel him. They were doubling him the whole game as well. So, sometimes all you can do is make it easier for your teammates, which Hutchinson did. But Muhammad being the other part of that is a pretty good thing, especially because Davenport is hurt. It's kind of up in the air, if he's going to play this week or not. Obviously, we would love to have him against Baltimore, but if he can't go, that makes me feel a little bit better about Muhammad seeing those pressure stats. Um, However, we don't really have an update on Davenport right now, unfortunately. All we know is he suffered two different injuries. Like, listen, man, it's week fucking 2, and the dude's got 2 injuries. I think it's time that we realize he cannot be relied upon.
Well, it's not like he has a habit of getting hurt, right? Oh, sorry. Never mind.
You know, I, that's the one thing I don't understand about Brad Holmes sometimes is I get it, man. If it hits so good. But to rely on Davenport the way that he has with injuries, and I mean, think about it. There's been a handful of guys. I mean, Hendon Hooker's one of them. Drafted him. He was injured, had a torn ACL. JMO had a torn ACL, but he ended up playing pretty well for us. So sometimes it works out, but when it doesn't, it kind of sucks, especially when you didn't go out and get insurance for Davenport. I know we just got done talking about Muhammad, but point being, what's behind Muhammad? Because that's kind of how you have to start thinking. When guys start getting injured, you're not necessarily going, okay, shit, Muhammad's going in there, we're fucked. I'm thinking, Muhammad's going in there, who's going to go to spell him at times when he needs it? Who's going to go in if he gets injured? And that's kind of where the snowball effect happens, in terms of depth. But with that being said, Dan Campbell says he said it again. He said, we're good. Exact quote. We are good. He feels confident in what we got, and he sees him in practice every day, and such things like that. So, if they feel good, hopefully we play good on Monday now. But with that being said, before I move on to our next key, do you have anything to add or say for the defensive line and pass rush in general?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I am pro adding a pass rusher. To be fair, I think all fans of all 32 teams would always like to add another pass rusher. But I also have faith in Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. So I'm not going to, I would say rip my hair out, but anyone that watches us knows there's not much left. But, but, uh, you know, we did get 4 sacks. It's something. I'm not going to ooh and ah over it, but it's at least something. And to your point, I find it extremely intriguing in the short term because right this second, I don't know who that guy is that spells Muhammad. I know by mid-season or so we will be getting Wingo and Pascal back, and it will be those guys. But right now, those guys, to my knowledge, are still on the pup list.
No, Mackay played this last weekend.
Okay, then good. I missed on that one. But I know he's more of a D tackle, but I feel like you can at least for a spell put him in at the defensive end spot. And I mean, in the large picture, I would hope that guy would be Pascal. I know he hasn't done amazing or even that great. Trying to just play devil's advocate, but with him being a second round pick, we need to rely on him. He's got to get things going, and he's another one kind of like Davenport, who just unfortunately can't seem to stay healthy. Um, so at least in terms of the D line with that, um, I mean that's all I would have. Obviously, Hutch got a sack. I think it was credited as a full sack because it was
Hmm.
might have been a half. Okay, it was a full. He got his first. I mean, obviously not gonna rant and rave about one, but I'm glad he got at least um that like chip off his shoulder. You got your first one. Now hopefully you can settle in because although he looked much better week 2, he still, despite what I saw in training camp and despite every report we saw in training camp, he doesn't look like the guy he was last year prior to injury, at least yet. I mean, to be fair, that was an insanely high bar. He had the 5 sacks against Tampa Bay, so I mean, it is quite the bar to uh, try to rise up to. but he hasn't been quite that guy yet. So I'm hoping he takes another step up. But as you said, um, you know what? I'll talk about the matchup more when we get to talking about Baltimore. So I'll save that till then.
Gotcha. And then with that being said, my second key for the game, which these are all the keys that I picked before the game, and then I'm talking about how it looked after. Um, just if that's not clear. But better DB play. That's kind of a big thing that we needed coming into Chicago, especially because we knew about their weapons. You know, we mentioned it coming in. They have three good receivers and two really good tight ends. So, and a good running back who can catch out of the backfield. So, coming into this, that was a worry for me. But I will say, DJ Reed played pretty freaking well from what I saw. It seemed like Terrion Arnold also played pretty good. He did allow a little bit too much to Odunze though. Odunze absolutely cooked us. He had like 7 catches, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like I had him on my fantasy team, so I liked it for that. But I did not like watching it happen. Thankfully, our offense put up 50 fucking points, so we didn't have to worry about it. But it didn't feel great still watching it happen because then I'm thinking like, damn, if next time it's a close game, is he gonna cook us like this again? Because if so, we might lose. Because dude, he was like their whole offense. It felt like. Um, but with that being said, obviously Kirby had an interception. Which, look, I love Kirby. But man, he's just in the right place at the right time sometimes. Because I don't know what the fuck Caleb Williams saw when he threw that ball, man. Like,
The
what
only
was he
thing
thinking?
The only thing I can literally even think of going by the TV angles and whatnot provided is since he was on the move, I think there's a chance he was trying to throw it away, but the ball didn't sail enough out of bounds. But that's literally the only thing I can even think of because the closest receiver was, because I freeze framed it on my TV, was 10 yards out. So
Yeah.
that ball was 10 yards over his closest receiver, but still obviously a good enough for Kirby to make the diving interception on.
And no, that's a good point because that's kind of what I was thinking too. I was thinking my thought was maybe he didn't know if he was outside of the tackle box or not and tried to throw it like in the area of his receiver, but throw it out and it just didn't work. It just
Well,
totally did
yeah,
not work. So I kind of get that process on it for sure. But if that's not the case, holy shit, that was
yeah,
a terrible throw. That was just rough.
yeah. If that
Um,
wasn't it, like you said, yikes.
Yeah. And like Kirby, like I said, I love Kirby, but man, that was a lucky interception. And now he has 18 interceptions since 2022, meaning he's now the number one player for the past 3 seasons in interceptions. So pretty good for Kirby. But speaking of insanely good safeties, Brian Branch is playing out of his fucking mind, man. He might be the next jersey I get. Honestly, like watching him live in Green Bay, dude, he was cracking people. Like, and that's what I love about Branch, man. He is just one of those guys that he don't give a fuck at all. And you can tell when he's out there, he's just running around hitting people. And he's a smart player. He can cover. He's honestly like right now he might be the best safety in football this season so far. Like, and I know that might be homerism or, whatever the case may be, but from what I've seen, and don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm out here watching every single safeties film or anything like that. So it's, take what I said with a grain of salt, but I still think Brian Branch should be in that conversation for the best, if not one of, if not the best safety in football. He probably is having his best season, so far of his career. Um, Looks like we lost James for a sec. I'm sure he'll be back. But with that being said, I will just move on to our next point being the run game. Like we mentioned before, 177 rush yards, 2 touchdowns. Gibbs had a great game. Monty had a pretty good game too. I came into this game thinking it was going to be a little bit closer and that we were going to have to kind of play keep away. But fortunately, that is not what happened. It was not a close game. There was no keep away. It was just keep fucking scoring. Which, if you're a football fan, you can't really ask for much more than that. So not really too much to say about that other than the fact that the blocking, pass blocking, run blocking, all of it was significantly better, like insanely better this week. The two guards, Mahogany and Tate Ratledge, combined for one pressure given up, no sacks. It was a really, really good game for them. It really felt like they kind of hit their stride. So, last week against the Packers, they were running into each other and doing all that dumb shit. But this week, it felt that they just kind of cleaned everything up and, sorted out all the kinks. And now we're good to go and we're off running. But with that being said, I would be remiss if I did not mention Isaac Tesla's insane catch right before the half, which I think kind of changed the game. It was a bit of a closer game when this happened, but it allowed the Lions to go down the field and get points right before the half, which was absolutely clutch. And the catch was just insane. Like, I was in the end zone in the end zone on that side where Isaac Tesla caught that touchdown. That one was insane. This one might even have been better though. On the sideline, one-handed grab with the context. Like last week, it was a throwaway garbage touchdown. This week, though, it meant a lot. So another huge, huge catch from him, but I would like to see a little bit more. He only had the one catch for 29 yards. And then the other thing I'd like to see a little bit more of is Sam Laporta. He has not really been getting many looks. He only had 3 catches for 26 yards in a game where Jared Goff threw for 334. So not great, in my opinion, but also this is someone who has Sam Laporta in a lot of fantasy leagues. So sounds like James lost power. So I will be cleaning this thing up by myself here towards the end. But with that being said, Baltimore versus Detroit. We are heading to Baltimore on Monday Night Football. Obviously, last time we played them in 2023 was not great. 38-6. They absolutely kicked our fucking ass. I do think this game's going to be different. I don't know if we win, but I do think it's going to be different. First key is the obvious one. You have to stop Lamar Jackson. I mean, that's all it comes down to. Well, not all, because you have to stop Lamar. Oh, James is back. We're good.
Yeah, I just had a power outage and it came right back. So sorry about that, guys. I don't know what is going on.
Hopefully it doesn't happen again, but
I hope
we
not.
are now on Baltimore versus Detroit Monday Night Football.
Okay.
I was just getting at, the first key of the game is going to be Lamar and Derrick Henry. We have to stop them running the ball. Like, honestly, if I'm being real with you, I am totally fine. Like, you know how you hear it all the time? Like, if you want to like disrupt this quarterback, you got to get in the pocket, create pressure, get him out of the pocket, make him funnel out, and try to do things off script. It's the
Reversing it for
opposite.
him. Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
the opposite with Lamar. Keep his ass in the pocket, like make him stand there. And I'm not saying he's bad at it. It's just you'd rather him stand there in that pocket and you try to get pressure around him than him get out of that pocket and now he's got a two-way go, bro. And you're fucking good luck. Good luck. Because if he hits that sideline, you might not catch him. And that's the thing with him. Like, I am much more scared of Lamar's legs than his passing, and that's not because he's not a great passer. He is a great passer.
Absolutely.
Like, honestly, he, in my opinion, he's the best quarterback in the league. Like, in my honest opinion, I don't see anyone better than him. Like the last 2 years, what's Mahomes doing better? I don't know. What's Josh Allen doing better? Right. What's Josh Allen doing better?
I think
I
I like
don't know.
Mahomes, or not Mahomes. I think I like Allen a little more from the pocket than Jackson, but I like Jackson's legs. They're comparable.
See, I disagree. I think Lamar is a better passer than Josh Allen is. I think that Lamar just doesn't get the love because he is so good with his feet. Like,
In my opinion, I do think Lamar is the best legitimate dual threat, not just I don't want to pile on the guy, but it's known I hate Hurts. It's not like Hurts, who I feel like is, or even Justin Fields, who's kind of like an only a runner quarterback. It's like Lamar can absolutely beat you from the pocket. But as you said, I am also more afraid of his legs than his arm, but it doesn't mean he doesn't have an arm.
all right, so when I tell you these stats, you might completely change your argument. Okay?
Probably.
And
Stats are facts.
I am very surprised by this. I didn't expect it to be this much of a discrepancy. Okay. So far this year, Josh Allen has completed 66.2% of his passes for 542 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 98.4 rating. Pretty fucking good. I mean, that's not bad by any means. However, Lamar Jackson has completed 68.8% for 434 yards, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions, and 136.6 QBR. Now, it doesn't stop there. Okay, so last year, Lamar Jackson had he had 4,100, well, 4,200, 4,172 yards, 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and a QBR of 119.6. Okay, that's insane. 41 touchdowns, 4,200 yards, and a QBR of 119.6, completing almost 67% of his passes. However, Josh Allen, 63.6% completion, 3,700 yards, 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, a QBR of 101.4.
Yeah,
In my
that is
opinion,
better.
Lamar blows him out of the water at this point. Like, and that's where I'm
Looking,
at. Go
hearing
ahead.
those stats, I agree with you.
Okay. And I will even go a year before that when Josh Allen won the MVP because they're a little bit more comparable, I will say. And honestly, Allen probably takes the edge on these. 66.5%, 4,300 yards, 29 touchdowns, 18 interceptions, 92.2 QBR. Lamar had 67.2 completion percentage, 3,700 yards, 24 touchdowns, 7 picks, 102.7 QBR. So that year was a little bit more comparable. But the last 2 years, well, year and a half, I guess you could say, with this season only being a few weeks in, Lamar is much better in my opinion. And obviously we can kind of say, well, at this point Lamar probably has a better O line. At this point, Lamar probably has a better running back. He probably has better weapons. Which is an arguable thing. I do believe that you could argue the Bills, not running back, obviously, but the Bills have you could argue have a better O line and have better weapons because they're pretty comparable, I think, in the way that they built their teams. Because you build them, they're similar quarterbacks. I will say they do play a different style of the same game, if that makes sense. Like
Yes.
Josh Allen's a big bruiser, like he'll run you the fuck over and he'll go get you that 4th and 3 by himself. Whereas Lamar is more finesse, like you're gonna let me say it this way. Josh Allen is a guy that you run like QB power with. Lamar Jackson is your read option, triple option, like get it and go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Comparison wise, I would say like just to kind of hammer it home to give people another potential comparison. Maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't. But I would say like Lamar Jackson's more like a Vic finesse runner, and then Allen's more of a Cam Newton will run your
mhm,
ass over, like you said. You
mhm.
can run a quarterback power with him.
Yeah, and that's I mean that's a perfect comparison. That's pretty much what I say as well because I mean it's pretty much exact. I will say everybody keeps saying Lamar Jackson, this and that could be as good as Vic. He's already better, and he's been better for like 4 years. So
Absolutely.
I think everyone should be now comparing Michael Vick to Lamar. You know what I mean? Like, and not to say your comparison isn't valid because it is in the context of what we were using it. But a lot of people try to say, like, man, he could get to the point Vic was. Bro, he's been
No, he's
gone.
passed.
He's
He's
out of
passed.
there, bro. He is literally, in my opinion, the best mobile dual threat quarterback ever. Like, you might be able to, say Steve Young or oh shit, I cannot believe I'm spacing on his name from Denver. John frickin'
Elway?
Elway. Yeah, bro. I don't know how I just spaced that, but John Elway is another one that I think you could probably say is up there, just because he did it in that era of he wasn't like a Lamar run type quarterback, but he could run it. But I still think you have to kind of give it to Lamar, and it's not I don't want to say it's not particularly close either, but that might be recency bias a little bit. But his
I'll say that.
accolades, yeah, his accolades speak for themselves at this point, man.
Yeah,
Like,
I was a very big Vic fan back in the day, and on the field, I will want to make that distinction. On the field, he was one of the first modern running quarterbacks. Because I know whenever I say he was one of the first running quarterbacks, people bring up Warren Moon and guys I've never seen before. Of course,
mhm,
I've heard the names and you can look up highlights, but um, growing up, the most mobile. type quarterbacks were like Donovan McNabb and Steve McNair. And they were more in today's game, I would say, comparable to like an Aaron Rodgers, where like they can't, well, a prime Aaron Rodgers, where they can run, but they're not running quarterbacks. Because like
Hmm.
Vic was like that first guy where you're like, okay, you almost have to have a QB spy every play.
Hmm.
And I'm so like Vic, in my opinion, is that um, kind of the mold or the centerfold of the running quarterback. And being a Vic fan, once again on the field, I was hesitant to have Lamar pass him when the conversation was happening like 2, 3 years ago. But at this point, it's just undeniable. I mean, it's look up the yards, look at because Vic never had the arm that Lamar has right now.
Hmm.
Um, Vic had a cannon; he could throw it probably 70 yards in air, but he couldn't aim it for shit. No offense to him, but Lamar is a much better quarterback,
Hmm.
absolutely, than Vic was ever.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. And I also just feel like to kind of wrap this part up, I just feel like Lamar is one of those guys that he's so I said it before, he's so good at running that people kind of discount his arm a little bit, but I genuinely believe like dude, if he wins a Super Bowl in the next 2 years, I think, and I'm not saying GOAT or anything like that, but I think people are going to start talking about him like they do Aaron Rodgers with like, dude, he's so fucking good, like just insanely good. And yeah, he might not win 7 Super Bowls like Tom Brady or, whatever the case may be. He needs to be respected simply just because he is that good, like a Barry Sanders type, where it's just like, yeah, he might not be like a lot of people would say Emmitt Smith is the greatest running back of all time because he has the stats and the touchdowns and everything. And I will say, man, I do kind of a random aside. I watched the Dallas Cowboys Netflix doc recently, and I do kind of feel like Emmitt Smith gets a little disrespected, man. Like genuinely, obviously we're Lions fans and Barry Sanders is better, but I hear way too many people being like, "Oh, Emmitt, he was only good because his O line." Da, 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 da,
Oh
da, da.
no, he
And it's
was
like,
special.
no, that's a fucking. I mean, watching like, because I hear about how good they are and all this and that, but
Did you
watching
get
like,
did
what's
you get
that?
to see him play? Sorry, side note before I forget it. Did you ever get to see Emmett play live?
I only the only team
Jeez.
as fucked up as this is, I only remember him in a Cardinals uniform.
I was gonna say, I'm like, at least the Cardinals years, I'm like, he was a, kind of like any older athlete. He was a shell of what he used to be, but
Yeah.
I'm like, you can at least still see him live. But no,
Well, and
he
that's
was great. But
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem. I have a lot of older friends, like 40s, because of work or whatever the case. And a lot of them, they talk about Emmett Smith and they're like, "Man, he was just good because of that old line and da 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 da." But when you're watching that Netflix documentary, they literally like traded up to draft him, like he was a centerpiece. And like then when he left and, because he wanted to get paid, he sat out 3 games. They lost every game, like it was like Emmett Smith was the Cowboys. Like, and I feel like that doesn't get, respected enough. So on that same, note of like people not getting their respect, I think he
yeah,
is he is definitely one of them. Um, but with that being said, speaking of great running backs, Derrick Henry is the other half of this fucking Baltimore Ravens two-headed running back attack. And look, man, I'm not saying Lamar
bowling ball.
Jackson. Yeah, dude. I'm not calling Lamar Jackson a running back, but what I will say is they have the best running back duo in the NFL. I know Lions fans love to say it, but like if you think of Lamar's run game, like his run ability as a running back while he's on the field with Henry, I don't think it's that close really. Like I love Montgomery. Don't get me wrong. He ain't motherfucking Derrick Henry, brother. He ain't Lamar Jackson either, honestly. Lamar's a better runner than David Montgomery is probably. However, he's the perfect complement to Ja and all these things we know. But I think I'd go as far to say that they have us beat in terms of, run ability between their two backs that are always on the field together, which makes it so much scarier. Um, it's like put fucking Jameer in Wildcat and have him run read option with David Montgomery. That's basically what they got, except they have two Jameers. So
Yeah,
enjoy.
RPOs with Jackson and Henry are nuts.
Yeah, yeah, they are going to kill any defense. So, point being, we just can't let them beat us. I mean, honestly, I'd rather let Lamar throw for 300 yards than let them rush for 300 on us combined. Like that's just where I'm at right now. And I do think if they throw for 300 and rush for like 70 combined, we can beat them. If they throw for 300 and rush for 200, then we're fucked. There's nothing we can do about that. So point being, it's going to be hard. Lions have not been great versus mobile quarterbacks, of course, but our run defense has been pretty good this year. And I feel like our defensive coordinator is going to put a pretty good scheme up. And the other thing, the last thing I have to say is their offensive line's pretty good too. So it's going to be a freaking task, man. It's going to be a tough game. And I'm just telling you, Lions fans, now get ready because it might not be the game you want it to be.
Oh,
I'm not
absolutely.
saying we're gonna lose, but there is a big chance. But with that being said, what are your thoughts on the stopping their run game? I guess.
Um, well, before once again, I'll try to deconstruct this from your ending point where I will say the Lions are going to lose. As much as I want them to win, the Ravens are a damn good team. They have scored 40 in both of their games this year. This has all the makings for a, like 45-42 game. Watch it be like a 9-12 game or some shit just because I said that. But it has all the makings of a big scoring game, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I don't want to start building in excuses, but these are kind of like when Kansas City and Philadelphia played. These are two, in my opinion, of the top 5 to 6 teams in the league, and one of us is going to end up losing. If we beat the Ravens fans shouldn't be upset, and if the Ravens beat us, we shouldn't be upset or act like the sky is falling. These are just two really good teams. In terms of stopping the run, it kind of coincides with everything I just said because it is I don't want to say damn near impossible, but a very tough task, especially for I'll say our rookie Tyleik Williams. Like he's been looking okay, don't get me wrong, but he's never had to try to tackle Derrick Henry before. There's no one in college like Derrick Henry. There's not really anyone in college like Lamar Jackson. So this is a unique blend, kind of how you said. Um, their running back duo because um, sidebar selfish plug. I am tracking 6 running back duos this year and every week adding their stats together and whatnot. And Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, I counted as a running back duo just because he runs so often and so efficiently. Unfortunately, I did not add up the numbers from last week, so I would have loved to present them here, but I don't have those in front of me. But like you
I
said,
can
not
tell you.
calling him a running okay. I'm like not calling him a running back by any means, but he is a force and someone you have to account for. And that also kind of circles me back to a little bit, and it might be going back slightly further, right before I had my random power outage. But I think Brian Branch might be a guy that we can maybe use as a quarterback spy and kind of
Hmm.
try to follow Lamar around. Um, Brian Branch, as you said, is a absolute beast. I want to quickly touch on him because he was the subject matter that I was looking forward to talking about before my unfortunate accident. He
So
had
before
six.
you move on, I do
Go
want
ahead.
to tell you
Yep.
the stat that
Oh, perfect.
Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Oh shit, I'm an idiot. My bad. I'm looking at the wrong game. I pulled up the Bills Ravens game to talk about that because I was going to mention how they did just lose to the Bills, which when
Week
they
one.
were up week one. Yeah.
Yep.
So, one second. Sorry. Well, let's say it this way: against the Bills, they had 239 yards on 24 rushes. That is 9.95 yards per carry between the two of them.
Not bad.
No, it ain't.
Let me see
Pretty
if I
fucking good.
because I did do
So,
the week one. They also had 3 total rushing touchdowns between them that game.
okay, so week two was not great at all. Holy shit. Derrick Henry only had 23 yards and Lamar only had 13. And they
Okay,
won
well,
41 to
if
17.
I'm the Lions, I'm studying the shit out of that film, and
Yep.
then I did not watch that game, so okay. Well,
That's surprising. Very
well, I
surprising.
know they scored 40 and one,
Yeah,
so
I know. So I wonder if there was like a pick six and a fumble or something that they
I
returned,
say they
but
do have a good defense too. I mean, hell,
yeah.
Jari Alexander was a healthy scratch. So
Yeah, dude, he has not played good this year yet.
he is
So
not. But even with him not being quite what he used to be, if he's a healthy scratch, that's a pretty good
yeah,
roster you have
yeah,
there.
true.
You also have Kyle Hamilton and Starks at the safeties, and
Yeah,
um, they got a good team. Like I said, I'm not trying to build in excuses, but they're just a good team. And I
yeah.
don't know if Lions fans remember the last time we played them, but it did not bode well for us. It did
38
not
to
bode well.
6.
Yeah, it
It
sounds
was a
about
rough
right.
one.
And
Um,
I had a couple flashbacks. Actually, I had one of the flashbacks watching the Chicago game on one of their two touchdowns. I'm sorry, they had three. One of their three touchdowns when Caleb rolled out. I believe it was Branch that left his assignment to put pressure on Caleb so Caleb couldn't just walk in. But then he left his receiver and uh, Caleb hit him for the score. I believe that was yeah, Kmet. No, Odunze. It had to be Odunze. And then, but that was like the big thing for me with Jackson the last time the Lions themselves played. Granted, we do have a different defensive coordinator, but there were several times where he had the ball up in his normal passing position, tucked it, and took two steps, and the defense collapsed on him, and then he put it back up, and then just lobbed it over everyone's head since they took a step in. And it worked all game long in the same pattern. And hopefully we can adjust for that. And if we do, then he might just run it on us. So it's yeah. so
yep,
hopefully, like
exactly.
so
It's gonna
hopefully,
be
like I was
tough.
saying, I'm like hopefully Brian Branch, hopefully he can be that spy. Last week against Chicago, he had two tackles for a loss and a sack, plus six solo tackles. He had that forced fumble. He was just all over the field. So as much as I'm propping up Lamar Jackson, maybe, and like I said, I don't know. I'm not in the coaching room. Maybe he can be the guy to help mitigate Lamar. Obviously, I don't think one man can, to be honest, do it by himself, but he hopefully can assist.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Um, the only thing I would worry about in that situation is like, well, I mean, it just depends on what coverage we're playing and all those kind of things too. So, Branch would be a good choice based on athletic ability and obviously just IQ in general because that's kind of what it takes when you're going against a guy like Lamar Jackson. Like you're not going to out athlete him, unfortunately, so you kind of have to outsmart him, which is also very hard to do. But Branch is a very, very, very smart football player, so I could see him being able to get that job done. But with that being said, the next. And I'll kind of package the last two together since they're pretty similar. First of all, is run game. The Lions have to run the ball, and I feel like they should be able to run the ball. Obviously, it's not like the Baltimore Ravens defense is easy to run the ball against or anything, but I feel like we have a pretty good, rushing attack, obviously. Um, Last time we played him, Gibbs had his best game of the season with like 160 or 150 scrimmage yards or something like that. Um, and I feel like, he could have another pretty good game. Obviously, Montgomery wasn't with us the first time we played Baltimore, so that's going to be a big difference because now we're going to have our bruising back there to help Gibbs, kind of change the pace and those such things. And then the last one is our pass blocking. Because I do feel like Baltimore has a really, really good pass rush. Specifically, Matabike, their defensive tackle, defensive lineman, whatever you want to call him. He is one of the best in the league, in my opinion. And of course, they have like Adafe Owe and a handful of other guys that they can put in there to
Mike
rush
Green.
you. Mike Green, exactly, exactly. They have a decent. They have a deep, decent enough, decently deep enough room over there to get the job done, and they can kind of just keep rotating guys and keeping them fresh too. So, I think if our pass blocking and our run game do well, I think we're going to do well in this game because I mean you mentioned Jair Alexander was a healthy scratch. However, Baltimore's defensive backs like let me say this. Hamilton is one of the best safeties in the league. We know that.
Yeah.
Malachi Starks is a rookie. Um, Nate Wiggins, second year player, solid corner. Nothing that scares me though. Jair Alexander, as we mentioned, pretty good player, was a healthy scratch. Marlon Humphrey, pretty good player, has had a few down years. He's still a really good corner, but he's getting up there in age and all those things. I say all of that to say that if we can run the ball and if our pass blocking is good, I think our receivers beat these DBs every time. I think JMO, Laporta, Tesla, Amon Ra, those guys are better than the guys they are going to be looking at and going against every play, in my opinion. So if we can get those other two things to go, I think the receivers will get open and will make plays and will open up our passing attack. So those are my takeaways or my keys for the win this week. Um, James, do you have anything to add before we give our predictions?
Not necessarily, just more expanding upon your ideas because I agree. To me, in terms of defensive backs, Baltimore reminds me a lot of Detroit. Two great safeties, and the corners can be better, but they're not bad. Um, it all depends, like you said, it depends on how they line up. I feel like if I could watch, and this might sound like a no duh situation, but if I can watch like the first like two drives, I feel like I could feel out how the rest of the game will go. It depends on how they want to play them, how much they want to blitz. If they're playing like Starks high and Hamilton in the box, obviously you got to adjust. But without kind of knowing what they're gonna do, it's hard to say what I would want to do, so to speak. But it should be a good game, and yeah, I don't fear their defense. I fear their offense a lot more than their defense, but like their defense is no slouch. Like they are a very good all-around football team.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like, their linebackers also don't get a lot of credit. They're pretty fucking good too. So, their defense, obviously, like you said, it's not like I'm like, oh shit, the Baltimore Ravens defense. But it's one of those that you have to prepare for, and understand because it's not like we're going against the Bears. Just saying. Um, but with that being said, my prediction for this week, I think it's going to be a close game. Like you said, it's kind of 50-50. I am going to say, though, the Lions win, squeak it out 27-24. Um, I don't think it's going to be a game winning field goal, though. I think we're going to score a touchdown to take the lead, and the Baltimore Ravens will not be able to score to take it back.
I It's one of those things where it's like my heart says one thing, but my brain says the other. I'm gonna go with what my brain says because I just can't be hurt again like I was last time. This one I'm gonna actually go with the Ravens. I'll say 31-21. I just think between their both teams' run game, uh, it's going to be, I feel like, a lot more running clock. I don't think either offense is going to be putting up, 40 and stuff like both teams did in the prior weeks. Um, but I feel like if either team can stop the other team's run, I think that's going to be like the main key. And with this being such a small sample size, because I feel like we've had one outstanding game and one pretty bad game, I don't know which Lions are the actual Lions at this point. And Ravens just have a track record of being good every single year, year in, year out. You know what you're getting against Derrick Henry, which is normally not good. Even with you saying like he only had 30 yards last week. I mean, hell, we might get a pissed off version that he goes for 200 on us. Who knows? So um, I'm gonna unfortunately go with the Ravens by 10 in this week.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand that. Really, the reason why I picked Detroit this week is because I think we saw Baltimore's vulnerabilities week one. Obviously they got out to a big lead and all that, but they did lose the game at the end of the day. And I feel like if we can kind of learn from what Buffalo did offensively against them and learn from what Cleveland did defensively against them, I think, well, at least in the run game defensively against them, we can kind of make a mishmash of two good game plans, and I think we can win this game. Specifically because I do think I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. I think we're better than the Bills this year. I think the Bills are a solid team. Uh, but I think we're better than they are, just top to bottom, offense, defense. You know, I think specifically defensively, we're better than they are. Offense, they can keep up with us, but they do not have the weapons we have. Obviously, they have Josh Allen, but they don't have the receivers, the running
Yeah,
backs,
they
you know,
lost
all of
Diggs
that.
and
Yeah. So they're a good team, don't get me wrong, but they don't scare me. And the fact that they beat Baltimore makes me go, okay, maybe Baltimore's not as scary as I thought, basically. Um, but it's still going to be a close game. And like I said, it could be 50-50. And, you know, like you said, I'm not going to set myself up for it. I mean, if they lose, I'm not going to be upset. I know how this game is
yeah.
going to go. You know, it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. I just hope it doesn't go the same way it did last time. As
Yep,
long as
I
we don't
am.
get, you know, fucking blown out the stadium, I'm
I'm
cool.
prepared for that. I'm prepared
Yeah.
for anything. Like you cannot go into this game drinking the Kool-Aid and
Yeah.
just being, and I know you're not, but for the people watching, you can't
Right.
go in here and thinking, "Oh, we figured out all of our problems from week one. We're good to go." Or, riding high, blah blah blah. And I'm just like, it's gonna be a big reality check if that's your mindset going into this week.
A
And if we
hundred
do,
percent.
if we do go in there and blast the Ravens, then okay, maybe I'll start the parade myself. But um, that's a big ask. So we'll see what happens.
And I will say, if we do go in there and just beat the shit out of them, not that I'd be worried, but I'd be like, okay, maybe we're hitting our stride a little too soon. You know, that's where I'd think because we got a long season ahead of us. And everybody knows in any sport, you want to hit your peak performance like the few weeks before the playoffs so you can kind of ride that high into the playoffs. So we'll see how it goes. We know our schedule gets worse, you know, at least harder from here. Uh, well, this week is a hard game, and then there's a couple not so hard ones. But then, you know, as we mentioned, there's 4 or 5 just really, really tough games back to back to back. So
Yeah, that Cincinnati game got a little easier, unfortunately,
yeah,
this week.
yeah,
So I never want to
very
see a guy
true.
go down with an injury. It sucks, but um, as a reporter, analysis, whatever the hell you want to call it, it does make that game easier in 2 weeks. So.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. So, with that being said, though, that will wrap up our Lions segment. And last but not least, our games of the week. Um, this is a weird week because there's not as many like big games. Obviously, I think Lions Baltimore is the biggest game of the week, period. But I chose Rams at Eagles and Dolphins at Bills. Real quick, Rams at Eagles I picked because it's an NFC matchup between two teams that are perennial playoff teams. And I feel like the Eagles are kind of having a down year in some ways, even though they're undefeated to this point. I do think they don't look as stellar as they did last year, you know, kind of everywhere, offense and defense. And I feel like the Rams could kind of give them a run for their money. I'm not going to say the Rams are going to win or anything like that, but I do think the Rams pose some unique uh, issues for them. And then the Miami Buffalo game I chose because it's in interdivisional. Those are always pretty good games. The Bills obviously are, you know, off to a pretty hot start this year. Miami not so much. So it's kind of one of those things where like could Miami come back? Are we going to see a good game? You know, if Miami gets blown out this week, that's probably going to be it for their season, honestly, because they have not looked very good. But if they can, you know, if they can win or even make it a good game against Buffalo, I think that, you know, that bodes well for Miami. But also, I kind of want to see what, you know, Buffalo can do against Miami because we're kind of looking at Miami like a down team this year. They're really not that good. So if Buffalo goes in there and just blows them out, it'll be like, okay, maybe the Bills are for real this year. And really, I only picked that game because it was the second best game I could find behind the Rams, Philly, and Lions, Baltimore. So not really a great slate this weekend, unfortunately.
Yeah, my 2 games this week, I kind of went the opposite way. I kind of was looking for two bad teams matching up against each other to see who's worse. So it might not be the most interesting watch, but I feel like it has an impact on the power ranking slash hierarchy of who's bad and then who's terrible. So like I'm looking at the Bears versus the Cowboys. The Cowboys looked like absolute crap against the Giants, and I know they won that game, but they allowed almost 500 yards to Russell Wilson, who's on his like third team in 3 years or whatever he's on. And obviously, we know what the Bears looked like last week, so I want to see how they bounce back from getting their tails handed to them. So that's a matchup I'll keep my eye on, just kind of between the who's worse battle. And then keeping that same kind of thought process in mind, the other game I am intriguing is the Bengals versus the Vikings.
Hmm.
Not only is it a divisional game in terms of the Vikings being in our division, obviously the Bengals aren't, but it's a battle between two backup quarterbacks. As I mentioned, Joe Burrow is out for it seems like at least 3 months. So, I mean, obviously he's going to be put on the back burner, and McCarthy's going to be back sooner rather than later. I think he just sprained his ankle. I just saw 2 to 4 weeks, so it's not going to be too long. But for this game, in these early pivotal games, because I know once we come to like week 12, 13, 14, people are like, oh, this is a must win because we had that, losing streak at the early part of the seasons or whatever, and I wish we could have that one back. This is a game that both of these teams I have potentially fighting for a wild card spot, and the Bengals are normally notorious for getting off to a bad start, but they started 2-0. So they started out pretty good. However, you're missing Burrow for I mean, if it is 3 months, that's, most of the season, at least 12 games. I mean, 12 weeks. A game against another team's backup quarterback could be absolutely pivotal for anything you're doing going forward. And same with Vikings, vice versa. I know McCarthy hasn't looked fantastic. He's going through his kind of rookie struggles, even though it's technically his second year. He's only had 2 starts. And I don't think this is a game that Minnesota can let slip through them because you're going against a Burrowless Bengals team. So I know a lot of people will look at this matchup and say, wow, two backup quarterbacks, lame, and probably just skip over it or just go watch a different team. And I get why. I'm intrigued because of that fact. Who is going to rise up and take this win when both teams are hurting?
Yeah, no, and I honestly really like that for those exact reasons you said. Obviously Wentz is going to get the start, and uh, freaking Jake Browning is going
Yep.
to get the start for Cincinnati. So obviously we're going to see backup quarterbacks, but I will say those are two backup quarterbacks that have done it before. Jake Browning specifically with the Bengals has done it a handful of times when Burrow's been injured. Wentz, he's starting his. If he starts this weekend, he will be the only quarterback to start for 6 different teams in 6 different years in a row. So pretty wild. Let me rephrase. It might not be 6 different teams, but different teams. Uh,
Starting quarterback.
yes.
Okay.
So it was definitely 6 years in a row. So that's I think why I thought 6 different teams as well. But point being is that it should be a pretty good game, and there are rumors that JJ's not even actually hurt. They're just benching him. So I don't know about all of that. We will see. I will say he did not play amazing against Atlanta.
No. He didn't.
And
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real, he didn't play amazing against the Bears either. He had a pretty rough first half, and then the second half he had that rushing touchdown, and a couple plays here and there, but it wasn't anything spectacular. And I'm a Michigan fan, and I love JJ, and I hope him well, or wish him well. But let's be real here. It's not like he looked like an elite quarterback. So I wouldn't
No.
be that surprised if they did say, you know what? And maybe he's injured, but it's not like, he can't play. Maybe they're just like, look, man, we're just going to keep you out. You're not playing that great right now anyway. Let's put Wentz in there. And if he just fucking sucks, if Wentz just sucks, we'll put you back in, and we're just going to have to ride the year out with you. So I get what they're doing over there, but I do agree those are two pretty good games coming up this weekend. With
Say
that
one
being said, go ahead.
one thing I wanted to add on that because I am just a big receiver fan. As I mentioned before, when I used to play, I played receiver, and even with these backup quarterback situations, like I talked about, it is still Chase versus Jefferson in a way. Like
Mhm.
obviously they won't go head to head, but who can kind of propel their backup quarterback? You should still see both. In my opinion, the one and two best receivers in the league on that game. So it's still something to watch for.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a good point too, especially with it being backup quarterbacks. Like it might even be more of a receiver duel because those quarterbacks are kind of relying on those two guys. And I mean, who knows? If one guy has one touchdown and the other guy has two, and it's a 14-17 game, they might have just won the game for them. So we might be able to see kind of a, obviously not head to head, but kind of a one-on-one situation there. But with that being said, that's going to be it for this one. We, as always, appreciate you guys for watching. I am at JSoSweet. He is at Gullet_James, and we are both at MI Sports Media at, or I'm sorry, at MI Sports Media on Twitter/X. And you can find us both at www.misportsmedia.com and also at Michigan Sports Media on YouTube, TikTok, and all those things. So hit us up, check us out, and we will see you on the next one. But before we go, Fanatics, baby. It is in the description. Click that freaking link. And I'm telling you right now, I'm about to go buy a Brian Branch jersey off of there today because Brian Branch is slowly becoming one of my favorite Lions. And if there's a guy on any team of any sport that you feel the same way about, click that link in the description and go get yourself a brand new jersey. They're probably on sale, even though it's in season. That's just how Fanatics is, man. It's like every 2 days they got a 70% off sale. With that being said, though, we appreciate you guys for watching as always, and we will see you on the next one.